little while ago, we heard the story of a professor who refused to use the preferred pronoun of a trans student. He got fired and filed a lawsuit. And now we have the latest update. He has lost that lawsuit. It was dismissed. And it was argued a couple things, notably that he as a government employee's speech refusing to use the preferred pronoun was not protected. This is kind of confusing, but, we'll read this. But also that he didn't actually state a specific claim. Again, it's all kind of confusing and kind of weird. I don't know necessarily if I agree with the judge or not, because they're arguing that pronoun use isn't like expressing a concern or a public matter, so it's not expression. I don't know. This guy is claiming that being forced to use a pronoun with which he disagrees with, it's the non-biological pronoun, he's being forced to convey ideas he doesn't agree with. I guess the judge said that doesn't meet the level of protected speech, which is the case. I don't know. Let me tell you this. We're at a time in our history where a student can come up to you and demand you say specific words, and if you say no, they can fire you and you can't do nothing about it. So you know what? Maybe it's better that this guy doesn't work there anymore. And maybe it's about time people start saying, shut up, I don't care, and quit. You know what, man? I get it. This is a government institution. It's really stupid that this is happening because somebody demands to be called a certain thing. One of the reasons this professor lost, though, is that he was given the option to just say the proper name of the individual and didn't want to. And if that's the case, well, they're arguing you didn't have to use any pronouns, you wanted to. I kind of feel like I don't care who you are. You can call somebody whatever you want. But I guess the main issue is that he's a government employee who had the option not to say something if he didn't agree with it. But he chose to say something he was instructed by his employer not to say, and that's the main issue. So I'll put it this way, man. God, please just quit these jobs. Stop going to these places. If someone comes to you and says you have to do this, and your boss says you have to, be like, no, and leave. If everyone just stood up and said enough, then we could move on. It's the most frustrating thing about so much that happens in politics and culture. People just shut up and bend the knee. Case in point. We'll read this first. But I'm going to have to throw a little shade at y'all conservatives. The Atlantic says, evidence that conservative students really do self-censor. Is free speech imperiled on American college campuses? Stop! Just stop. Oh, I know. They'll cancel you. They'll kick you out. You'll lose your job like this guy. You'll sue and you will lose. So what? Have a spine, man. I'm not trying to blame the victims necessarily. And that's gonna get me in trouble. But what I mean is, if you are the one who's being told you can't speak and they'll destroy your lives, I get it. You're in a tough spot. But I'll tell you this. If it were me, I'd give them a big old middle finger and say, bye-bye, later. And I've done it before. I've worked jobs where I was disrespected by my boss and I said, I'm going to quit right now. You don't know me. And they were like, oh, please, later. And then they begged me to stay. Please don't quit. Please. Nah, I'm gone. I wish more people were like that. Dude, you should have quit in the first place. Because if everyone who disagreed quit, then what are they going to do? Fill their ranks with bubble echo chamber? Fine, I guess, whatever. But just leave. Let's read the story from Metro Weekly. Federal court dismisses lawsuit from evangelical professor disciplined for misgendering trans student. Misgendering, they say. Judge finds Nicholas Merriweather failed to show he was discriminated against or had his free speech rights violated. This is a really tough case to rule, and I got to admit, for the judge. Because it's not an issue of him necessarily. It's a fine line between using a pronoun and stating your opinion on a public matter. But more importantly, he's an employee of the government and he was instructed, here's what your job is. And if you don't agree with this, here's an alternative. He refused. So in that case, it's kind of like there was a compromise. I think the whole thing is dumb anyway. And he ended up, getting fired. Maybe they'll appeal. Let's read. On Wednesday, a federal court dismissed a lawsuit filed by an evangelical state university professor who was disciplined after repeatedly misgendering a transgender student. Infractions determined to violate the university's non-discrimination policy. There is a big difference between, what is and isn't discrimination. Sorry, man. He made a really good point in his case that there's an infinite number of genders and literally hundreds to choose from in the school. How could he possibly remember every single one? That's where the line will be. But for now, if they say just say the person's name and you say no, they're going to be like, okay, well, then you choose not to. I still think it's really dumb. Professor Nicholas Merriweather had sued his employer, Shawnee State University in Portsmouth, Ohio, alleging that his First Amendment rights had been infringed. That was after he received a written warning for repeatedly referring to Jane Doe, a transgender male student. Sorry, transgender female doesn't make any sense. This individual was born male and is transgender, presenting themselves identifying as a woman. See, what they're doing here makes no sense and conveys no solid idea to anyone. Hence the problem with all the pronoun stuff. Language is supposed to help convey ideas. This person is not female, nor are they transitioning to female, because female is a biological sex. You can argue that gender is a social construct, and they're transitioning genders, that I understand. Not biological sex. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. Using the title Mr. and male pronouns, despite using correct pronouns for every other member of the class. Meriwether grieved the discipline, but the grievance was denied. He then enlisted the help of the anti-LGBTQ Alliance Defending Freedom to file the lawsuit against Shawnee State, arguing that his religious beliefs that gender is fixed, binary, and determined by biology from birth prevent him from acknowledging transgenderism. The National Center for Lesbian Rights, along with Adam Unikowski of Jenner and Block LLP and Jennifer Branch, that's fine, intervened on behalf of Jane Doe and the university's LGBTQ student group, Sexuality and Gender Acceptance. On behalf of their clients, the lawyers moved to have the lawsuit dismissed. The case went before Magistrate Judge Karen Litkovitz of the Western Division of the Southern District of Ohio, who issued a recommendation last September arguing for the lawsuit to be dismissed. In her opinion, Litkovitz noted that Meriwether was given multiple opportunities to stop referring to Doe as male, and was even given the option of simply referring to Jane Doe by a first or last name without using pronouns or formal titles. Okay, now I get it. Not their first or last name, their preferred name, in which case he still rejected it, probably because this person who was born male was now identifying as a woman and using a female name, to which this person probably disagreed with. She also rejected claims that the disciplinary action violated Meriwether's freedom of religion. She also rejected claims that the disciplinary action violated Meriwether's freedom of religion, was motivated by hostility towards religion, or infringed on his freedom of speech, saying, quote, "Speech by a government employee is protected under the First Amendment only if the speech was made as a citizen while addressing a matter of public concern." Okay, so he was acting as a government employee. She wrote in her opinion, a government employee's speech is made as a citizen and is protected under the First Amendment only when the speech is not pursuant to the employee's duties. So this is just so stupid and weird. How you can simultaneously say that the government can't tell someone what they can or can't say, and then we have law saying you can't discriminate. Who decides what is or isn't discrimination? On Wednesday, U.S. District Judge Susan J. Dlott of the Southern District of Ohio dismissed Meriwether's lawsuit, agreeing to adopt Litkovitz's recommendation. The court concludes that Meriwether failed to state a claim for violation of his rights under the United States Constitution, Dlott wrote in her ruling. His speech, the manner by which he addressed a transgender student, was not protected under the First Amendment. Further, he did not plead facts sufficient to state a claim for a violation of his right to free exercise of religion, for a departure from religious neutrality under Masterpiece Cake Shop v. LTD v. Colorado Civil Rights Commission, or for a violation of his rights to due process or equal protection. Alliance Defending Freedom could decide to appeal Dlott's decision within the next 30 days, but has not yet indicated what actions it plans to take next. Meanwhile, the National Center of Lesbian Rights issued a statement celebrating the lawsuit's dismissal. "We are pleased the court affirmed that schools can ensure that all students are able to learn and access educational opportunities available to all students without fear of discrimination," Asaf Orr, a senior staff attorney and the director of NCLR's Transgender Youth Project, said. This is just where everything breaks down and everyone goes insane. I'm sorry. And this has nothing to do with transgender individuals. It has to do with the infinite genders that can't be addressed. So in a story from, this is from Daily Mail, they mentioned that Meriwether, what do they bring it up? Basically, whatever. He said that there's infinite genders. And how is this lawsuit, how is this circumstance going to become tenable in the future, when quite literally anyone can say, you must call me by this name. At a certain point, a judge will have to rule they don't. But then the whole floodgates open. Because here's the way I've brought it up before. First, actually, let me read this. They say something really dumb. Since this lawsuit began, transgender students have been worried that they would have to start skipping classes or avoid particular professors because Shawnee State would no longer be able to effectively address bullying, harassment, and mistreatment of transgender students. Because someone called you a name? Seriously? Dude, come on, man. You can call me any name you want, and they do all day and night on Twitter. And I tell you what, they're going to call me names because of this video. Are you kidding me? This is what I'm going to have to, I can't go on the internet anymore. I can't look at my computer screen. Oh, shut up. Grow up, man. The president of Saga said in a statement, Saga and its members are relieved that the courts recognize the importance of Shawnee State's anti-discrimination and anti-harassment policies to transgender people on campus. This is a big step toward progress for all transgender people on Shawnee's State campus. Well, I'll tell you what, man. It's not going to happen yet, but it will happen soon. And what do you do when each student has their own set of pronouns and unique name to identify with? Like, I know it's extreme. I'm going to give you an extreme on purpose. Let's say you went in there into a class at this university and said your pronoun was florbagabo dabo debo boop boop badoop badoop. Are they going to say that every single time? No, they're going to say that's absurd and ridiculous. What if you said that your name was Vociferon, Herald of the Dark Sea, Lord of the Winter Vale? Are they then going to be like, I refuse to say that. I'll call you Vociferon for short. No, I refuse. My name, Vociferon, Herald of the Dark Sea, Lord of the Winter Vale. You must use my name. Obviously, that's extreme and makes no sense. No sane person is going to agree that that is a legitimate thing to be called. Then it goes to the courts, and the judge will have to decide whether or not your First Amendment rights are being infringed upon by refusing to use the name of the identity of the individual. Now, the judge is probably going to say that's not reasonable. But then who gets to decide what is? I mean, the courts for the most part. That will open a door for any judge to then say, we interpret this name to be unreasonable. But for what reason, in what regard? And if you think my name's unreasonable, then what about literally anyone else's name? What if we step it back and they just say that their name is Vociferon Grand, Arbiter of Darkness? They give themselves a name and a title. At a certain point, you walk it back and they're going to say, no one's going to know how to say that. No one can do that. You can't force someone to speak things. I guess the issue here, what's really going on with this ruling, is the conflation between insulting someone with a slur and using a word that represents how you feel. No, I think most people would agree. If this professor was referring to a student by some kind of slur, they'd say that's discrimination. You can't insult people based on these, on these things. Or, I mean, look, as an employee for the government, you can't call someone a name anyway. You know what I mean? If you went around and just started calling one student, a butthead or something, I got to keep the language family friendly, mind you. Then they're going to be like, we're going to fire you if you don't stop calling that student this name. But the difference now is he's literally calling the student by a pronoun and Mr. And they're saying that's basically on par with using a slur because it's discrimination. You know what, man? I got a solution for all y'all. 2 solutions. The first, stop self-censoring. Stop. Now, of course, I'm going to get a bunch of people saying, but Tim, you censor on YouTube. Look, man, I don't censor my ideas. I just try and keep the language toned down. All right. If you want to talk politics on my main channel, I mostly talk politics. On this channel, I'm more than happy to talk about issues outside of that, cultural issues, natural disasters, all that stuff that YouTube absolutely hates. I talk about whatever I want. And you know what? If they ban me, I don't care. I know full well this video could get me banned. I'm going to talk about it anyway. Don't care, man. Have a little less to lose. Like, what's the worst case scenario? I think this is something I learned from skateboarding. I was reading about tips from pro skateboarders. And, when you're going for a trick, there's really, there's a fear in a lot of tricks you might do. You may have seen, for those that aren't familiar with skateboarding, someone sliding down a big handrail. And you think that's so scary. And yeah, when the skateboarder's approaching, it is terrifying. And you think to yourself, what's the worst that could happen? And the worst that could happen is pretty bad. But once you think about it, you're like, I can accept those risks. And that's what y'all need to do right now. When it comes to this, words are not violence. If every single conservative and moderate and liberal who rejected this stood up and gave the middle finger, it would be done with, and we'd all move on. If every single person in that school refused to adhere to this ruling, what are they going to do? Shut the school down? Good. Then the school gets shut down and this stupid idea gets flushed down the toilet. That's what you need to do. But I'll tell you what, if you don't want to play these games, if you don't want to speak, or I mean, if you're brazen, I just call people Florbo. Florbo. You got a special pronoun? What's that? Z and Zer? Florbo. You want to be called they, them? Florbo. You know why? Because florbo is a word that is respective of all peoples. Every single person. I'll call every single person a florbo. You're a cisgender, white male, florbo. You're transgender, woman, florbo. You don't get to decide the words I use. So we can play this game all day and night, and I'll make up my own words. And how are you going to claim it's discrimination if I call everybody a florbo? I'll just make up words left and right like everybody else. And then guess what? What do you think they're going to say when they stop calling me a florbo? No. I call you what I want. In fact, I will posit this. I am going to call everyone florbo. You know why? Because some people might be offended if I use the wrong or whatever pronoun. You see, to this man, he's saying it's actually offensive to use the social construct pronoun versus the biological determinist pronoun. How do I know who will or won't be offended? I don't. Therefore, to avoid all mishaps, I will use one single word, florbo. Boom. It's not a harsh word. It's not a gross word. It was designed specifically off the top of my head to be a simple sounding word that's not like harsh on the tongue, florbo. It actually sounds like a cute little fuzzy little creature, right? A little florbo, huh? There you go. Everyone should be happy with that word. But here's the point. They probably won't be because they want power and control. They want you to bend the knee and do what they say or they will come after you. I personally have no problem calling anybody what they want to be called. But if a bully comes to me and says, you will call me what I want to be called or else, I'll say, or else, come on, do something about it. So look, florbo is funny. I'll call everybody that. I don't care. If I go to a situation and someone's like, I want to be called by this, you're all florbos now. I choose my words. But more importantly, just stop self-censoring. Stand up and take some responsibility for your ideas and your life and stop letting these people push you around. Now, I know for the most part I'm preaching to the choir, but look at this in the Atlantic. Conservatives really do self-censor. Well, stop. What's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to kick you out of school? Good. Then leave. Don't tolerate this stuff. Stand up for what you believe in for once. You know what? Listen. Donald Trump has no problem standing up for what he believes in to his own detriment and to his own benefit in certain circumstances. And Bernie won't. The guy won't do it. A small woman takes the mic from him. He's got no spine. I do not respect that. All right. I don't care about what you agree with or don't agree with in terms of policy or culture or whatever. The point is, just have a spine. You know what, man? If you're in a school, if you're in a workplace and you won't stand up for yourself, don't expect anyone else to do it for you. Now, I get that's why a lot of people voted for Trump, because finally you had a guy who was going to push back for you. Nah, I'm not about that. I take care of my business on my own. And that's what everyone needs to do. Take responsibility for what you care about. And if that means you end up buck naked in the middle of the woods because you've been canceled and ostracized, so be it. Learn how to build a mud hut and start a fire and survive, because no one owes you anything. But if you're going to let these people run amok, go nuts, these woke, insane leftists with insane ideas about nonsense, well, then you deserve to live under their heel because you won't stand up and push back. We'll see how things turn out. I don't know where we're going. I'm just sick and tired of it. I want people to finally just give them the finger, flick them off. So what? What can they do about it? Just leave, man. Refuse to participate. Protest. I'll see you all in the next segment at 4 p.m. YouTube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out.